Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I've had some people ask me, including someone for the coming up Q&As, and I thought I would just give this its own video. They're wanting to know, why do I and a lot of coaches out there who write programs, particularly for novices and even a lot of intermediate programs, why do they have such low volumes on the deadlifts? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Work on skill with my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. The reason for that, and the reason I do it, same reason guys like Rip, Toe, Bill Starr, everyone else does it that way, is because most lifters in their first year or two of lifting don't have a good enough grasp of their body, their own recovery, signs of overreaching to really properly deal with high volume deadlifting. And because of that, it is very difficult to program it for novice and in some cases even intermediate lifters. And the reason for that is that the deadlift is one of the most difficult exercises to recover from on a set per set basis. All right, particularly as the RPE starts going up or volume starts going up, even accumulation work with it, people can burn out very quick. They can reach overtrained states very quickly. It can happen very, very fast when you're deadlifting, and it's because the deadlift does two things. Number one, it puts the most axial loading you're probably going to see of any exercise on your body. We know that axial loading, or compression of the spine, has its own recovery component, and it has a systematic recovery component, meaning it can affect your peripheral nervous system's recovery. All right, it affects your whole nervous system's recovery, that compression of the spine. The more you compress the spine, the more sets, more reps, and everything else, depending on the tonnage of it, it can start to become a very, very difficult problem to recover from. Unfortunately, most axial loading exercises are the absolute best exercises for developing overall strength. They tend to be the very best. But you have to think in those terms of how much axial loading can you handle day to day, week to week on a training program. Deadlifts tend to put the most on there. The only thing that puts more axial loading on your body is going to be block pulls or rack pulls. The reason, you're lifting more weight, you're compressing the spine more. So, if you're pulling from the floor 500 pounds on a rack pull, above the knees, you might be pulling 700, 800. Some block pulls, you might be adding 100, 150, 200 pounds to what you're normally using on a work set for the same number of reps. Novices, obviously, they're not going to be that big of a difference, but you'd be surprised. So you have all that axial loading extra from doing those. It really, really beats up your recovery. So that being said, limiting the amount of deadlifting you're doing can be a useful tool when you're chasing overall hypertrophy and performance. And the deadlift will put a lot of size on you. It will obviously put a lot of strength on you. The problem is you can't do that much of it. Now, have I personally used accumulation training on the deadlifts with submaximal weights? Yeah. Have I done deadlifting every day? Yes. But the problem is, you're doing any sort of volume like that or frequency like that, you have to regulate the intensity. Meaning, you guys remember when I was doing a deadlift every day? I was doing singles with 80% of my max. And I would come in and do 5 singles every day. I used to do it at home in my garage. I kept a bar loaded up with that. And I would just come in and pull 80% of my max. Just left the bar loaded there. I'd pull it for 5 reps throughout the day. Sometimes I'd do them back to back with about 3 minutes break between them, do other stuff, come do my 5 sets. However, what I found, even doing that, eventually I started to notice excessive peripheral nervous system fatigue, recovery problems at about the 5 to 6 week mark of even doing that. And that's 80%. Same thing a while back when I wasn't filming, I was doing accumulation work on the deadlifts. I was coming in and doing high volumes of triples with really lightweight, like 405. I was putting 405 on the bar, coming in and doing triples with it. Anywhere between 3 to 8 sets of triples, as often as 5 days a week. Same thing happened. By around the 5th week, started noticing the major fatigue kicking in to the point to where even 405 felt heavy for a single. Had to back off. Now, it seemed to have worked. I mean, it thickened my back and hamstrings up a bit from doing that. Definitely noticed a difference. Definitely worked into as far as a hypertrophy tool to do that, but it was very, very difficult on my recovery. And the thing is, most novice lifters are not going to be in tune with their body enough to follow a program. And because recovery rates can be a bit individual when you're riding cookie cutter style programs for a large number of different people, you have to be careful of the volume on exercises that are going to impact recovery like that in a really powerful and negative way. Now, the beautiful thing with the deadlift is that the deadlift itself doesn't require a lot of technique. There are techniques you can use to lift more weight. There are a lot of techniques you can use, but they only add a little bit. It's not as much of a technique-oriented lift as a lot of others. You're just picking a heavy weight up off the floor. Like I said, there's a couple little cues you can use. I use some of those things, like a pre-motor unit slack, where I come up and then pull down, and then, drop my hips down and then pull the bar. That's one of them. How about thoracic rounding? Rounding of the upper back? Yeah, absolutely. Those are techniques you can use on the deadlift that help. But there's not a lot of technique involved. It's not like you need large amounts of motor unit learning. It isn't as necessary on this. What the deadlift does is it finds the weak link in your body. So what Bill Starr would do, look at what he had people do and only had them do it deadlifting like once a week on the Mad Cow's 5x5, doing basically a peak 5 rep set. He'd have them ramp up to it with lighter weights, but they were really only pulling about once a week, I believe, on Mad Cows. And he was doing that for football players. How did he build their strength up, though? He used other exercises to build their strength. What did he use? Power cleans, rows, squats. All of those had a bit more volume in them. Squats and rows have a fair amount of volume on this program. Then you got power cleans and everything in there. Will those build your deadlift up? Of course they will. Squats build most of the muscles in your body. Squats build most of the muscles that you use to deadlift. You can tolerate higher volumes of squats, so you can therefore accumulate more metabolic fatigue. You can put more size on simply because you can tolerate more volume. Your maximum recoverable volume on the squat is going to be higher than on the deadlift. How about barbell rows? Is going to increase your deadlift? Sure they will. If any of your upper back is the weak link in your deadlift, anything in your upper back or even middle back, any of that is a weak link, then that will help bring it up. It also works your grip. How about the power cleans? Power clean strength transfers directly to the deadlift. All right, uses all the muscles in the deadlift are used. Now you're more explosive with a lighter weight, but if you came in and you did tons of power cleans and got really strong on the power clean and very rarely deadlifted, what would happen with your deadlift? Your deadlift would go up. I'd venture to say that if a person came in and did power cleans 3 days a week, which are easier to recover from, 3 days a week, and they only deadlifted once a month, right? They deadlifted once a month. I would guarantee you that that person's deadlift would go up in proportion to their power clean. Even if they only did the exercise once a month, it would still go up significantly, probably in proportion to the power clean. The power clean strength tends to transfer directly to your deadlift. Those are all exercises that you have a much higher maximum recoverable volume from. So therefore, a lot of coaches use those to build up the strength on the deadlift, and then they do the deadlift just to build the muscle and strength and everything for the deadlift, because that carries over to a lot of things. But that's what a lot of coaches do. Now, can high volume deadlifting work? Yes. Are there people who do 10 sets of deadlifts a week? Are there champions who come in and do 10 sets of deadlifts, even sometimes relatively heavy on a day? Yeah. Jamie Lewis sometimes do high volumes of deadlifts? Yeah. Jamie Lewis is known for having people do 20 singles on the deadlift in one day. He's been known to do that himself in his own programming. And he did that coming in and setting the Raw 181 world powerlifting records, right? Came in and set the world record in squat and deadlift, or in the total at least. But you have to carefully program that, and you're not going to be able to carefully program that sort of stuff for year 1 and 2 lifters and just tell them pay attention to your body, know when to back off. Well, that's not a cookie cutter program when you're having to have people do that all the time and telling them auto-regulate. It's hard to tell novices, or at least lifters with less than 2 years of experience, of serious experience under their belt, to auto-regulate their recovery on their deadlifts. You're going to run into problems. You start putting out programs to where you have people do that, you're going to have a lot of failures. You're going to have a lot of people who overtrain. You're going to have a lot of people with chronic overreaching problems. You have people who aren't recovering properly. Higher volume deadlifting should probably be limited to one-on-one coaching, where the coach is working with you directly, not something that you put out in a big cookie cutter program. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.